Hello. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to Archetype, sponsored by Lenovo and AMD. It's me, your host, Ashley, and we are going to get into it. As you guys pop in, please say hi. I always like to see all the familiar chat names, I guess, usernames. And yeah, let's do a little bit of a review of where we were last week. So last week, we concepted out our guy. I went ahead, we only got the line work done in the stream, but I went ahead and finished it and did a color pass and kind of did a paint pass and stuff and had a lot of fun. Hi Maddie, hi Milky Sign. Enjoy silently. Cool. Enjoy it however you want it. But yeah, so we're going to go ahead and get into blocking out the sculpt, and then we'll be detailing more next week. And then usually, like always, we do a pose at the end of the month. And I also put it in our previous character in here for reference, just to try to make sure that I'm kind of sticking to, you know, the same style. I kept really sharp cloth kind of stuff on her. Pretty interesting, like simplified things. So we'll see how I can kind of translate that type of stuff over into our new character. So that's kind of the idea. Ooh, someone's staying up late to catch it. I appreciate that. I used to be a draw late at night person, but now I'm actually a draw early in the morning person. I like that a lot. I like having my cup of coffee and kind of having no brain on. The brain kind of ruins a lot of things when it comes to my thought process. I like keeping it organic and fun. So also just, I feel like I get my best drawings done when I'm not overthinking it. So this is actually a really good example of a character that, you know, on our drawing, we were able to just kind of do the front face. Oh man, watching it 1 o'clock in the morning. I love it, Milky Sign. Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate you. So this character is a really good example of how we can take something kind of, you know, in 2D, making the orangutan face works fairly easily because he's just got like a square face, but now we have to make sure that we realize that in all forms, 3D in 3D. So that's always going to be a challenge, is to make sure that we're following what our forms can do in our concept, but now trying to add that extra dimension to it. Again, I like to start really low and just try to start getting in some basic forms to start with. Most of orangutan flaps, they seem to kind of push forward on the face, so that's something that we might be able to play with. I think I do want to see a little bit of his eye, though, if he looks from the side. So we can kind of play with how that's going to look as we go throughout this. It's important, even in this block out, you know, even in super early stage, I try to look at it from all angles. Make sure that I'm kind of getting the right idea to start with. You know, I have in my reference, I have, you know, real reference of orangutans with proper anatomy and the skull structure and all that, so I can try to get that. Right. Because even though we're stylizing it, you know, it's all really important to keep in mind in the real world how these things attach and function. You know, like where does the neck go? Where does the back of the head go? You know, because there is this face flap, but this is also part of his skull back here, because they kind of have like a gorilla type skull where they have a really big protuberance in the back. I think the gorilla's there for, it's kind of like a dominance male thing that you see really all, just pretty common in nature, just in general. Yeah, we'll just start by getting simple block out first. I'm going to try to keep, I want to try to keep his body pretty square, because we're going with this square. You know, our previous character was kind of more triangular shapes, playing with that, so I want to try to make his body pretty square and kind of keep that motif going. Drag that one out. So what I like to do is I can make the whole length of the arm. We'll see how long. I mean, this seems pretty long, but we don't know yet. We'll see. Then I can pull that out, bring that in, and then again, I can select this arm here. I can create one for the deltoid and one for the forearm. And then I can auto group that or dynamesh it with groups on, and now I get a 3-part piece to work with. Which is kind of how I like to work with the arm. I like to work with the deltoid bicep to be able to pull that up into the deltoid. So that way I get like a good feeling and sense of overlap as to where this connects to the torso. And then also the feeling of where the elbow will be versus where the overlap for the forearm is. And things like that. And we'll go ahead and run a mirror and weld so we can see both of it. I'm also going to keep in mind, I'll be adding really long strands of fur. We'll be probably doing that with like an actual brush. Well, because he's always got fur, I'll always put like a little bit of fur in the volume itself. It's the same thing that they do for even when we're putting on, you know, actual like X-Gen fur or something like that for something realistic. We'll try to get the volume of the fur as close as possible so we don't have to render out each and every single little individual hair, which can be really costly. So I'm going to keep it to the main volumes that I want to see. Again, same thing here, just reusing stuff. And then I can hide that, kind of mesh it. And now I have a thigh along with where the knee could be. I try to make give the leg where the hip basically would be. Remember, this is always the part that in the beginning it's kind of that I always talk about it is the embrace the suck idea, you know, where the sculpt in the very beginning is always going to look weird or wrong, or it's going to look rough, or it might not just be really hitting with you quite right, you know, but you have to keep adding all the elements together in order to get the full and final feel. So it's just really important to, you know, have patience with your art in that sense. Because all these elements together is what will make these shapes really nice. But you got to give yourself some time. There's also it's the same thing when you're drawing and painting as well. There's always going to be a moment of being like, man, I don't think I should push forward with this. This isn't looking right. This isn't looking good. You just kind of got to push through that moment. And I always called it embracing the suck. Not my term. Somebody told me that, and I don't remember who told me to embrace the suck, but it was always something that sort of stuck with me. Now leaning back quite a bit so we can mask his feet. And I'll just rotate him up a little bit. There we go. Also move his feet in a little bit more now, and then I'll also bow out his legs a little bit. Just trying to focus on hitting these silhouettes first. That's what's going to be important. That'll make sure that we're basically not polishing a turd. That's going to be the goal. Block out the hand here. I think his legs could be even shorter, possibly. Another thing too is I want him to feel pretty big. So this is one thing where in our drawing, his face is fairly large, but we might want to play with making his face maybe smaller. Because if you make his face smaller, see how much bigger he looks when you do that? So he'll feel kind of massive. So the idea is maybe, he's this big, and our other character, was maybe, I don't know, that tall in comparison or so. So we want him to feel a lot larger. I think that could work pretty well. I think that would look pretty cool. So again, this is where, our idea in the initial concept, we might stray from a little bit more because I feel like it will match with the character better to do it this way. And remember, orangutans also have that weird skin flap here, so I'll just take this section, and again I'll Dynamesh that, and now I have this section, which is still his chest, and now I can grab this and I can kind of run an inflate on it, start rounding that out a bit. And that, I believe, in most references, I think it just goes up around the neck and onto the shoulders. So again, we can keep that kind of squared off as well. Play with how big and small and proportional that is to everything, because you kind of want maybe like a rule of thirds here where maybe it's a little shorter, because you want this idea of maybe small, medium, and then large, right? Kind of shape read. So 1, 2, 3 shape read. So our body's the biggest shape. Whereas if I bring this halfway down, it's going to compete with the body in shape, right? So it's not going to feel as good. if you want to make that part bigger, then you'd want to make that part way, way bigger, right? And like really exaggerate how big that is. But I don't think that that's the case that we need. I feel like it's better to keep it at this small, medium, large read. And it's the same thing with the arms and stuff too. So, you know, small would be maybe the deltoid, medium would be his bicep. So you can make his bicep a little smaller. And then the large would be, obviously, is going to be his forearm, especially because we have so much tufts of fur and stuff going on there eventually. So I always feel like that's a good thing to do too, is when you feel like your proportions aren't feeling right, you can always go back to that big, medium, small. And you can usually find something that works. So for example, I also think, oops, come on now. The thigh and the calf kind of feel the same, right? So this is where we can go in and play with these shapes here, and we can squat it, squish it down a bit more, and maybe that will give it more character. You know, or it's the opposite where we can make them bigger than the thighs, but I don't think that's the case that I want. I think I want them to be smaller. And then once we know that, we can play with elongating the upper thighs a bit more. So that way he doesn't have super, super short legs, but we can just play with these proportions. If that makes sense. And the arm is in the way, so I can isolate this and we have large, and then we have medium, and the small, or small is in the middle, and then our medium could be the feet, right? It's really about length and volume wise, these comparisons. So, Sato, hello. Hi, peoples of the internet. Play with these volumes here. I do want his silhouette here to feel more squared off, so you can play with bringing this up. You can also play with just bringing this up entirely. Yeah, that's working. If you feel like something's not working, big changes is usually a really good place to start. And now I can kind of adjust these in. I'm also just trying to make sure I have that nice kind of silhouette feeling. If I get rid of the arms here, I kind of want to make sure that it starts up in his head and it goes down, and then there's a nice curvature into his leg. We want to round that out, round this down, round that out. We can always make him a little thicker and stuff too if we need to. I think that's working. Yo, monkey. Yes, Foxbury. I mean, technically, I think ape, but we're not going to get into the technicals. I do love orangutans, though. Of all the apes, I think they're probably my favorite because they seem the less jerkish compared to the other apes. I don't see orangutans being super aggressive with each other like chimpanzees are. When you go to the zoo, the loudest thing in there are going to be chimpanzees. Every time. And then again, even though this is all separate, I can sculpt on top of all this because it's all one subtool. And I can kind of start to blend and get some forms in here. Find out where his elbow is versus where the musculature of his radiobrachialis muscle. So I can start seeing where his thumb will be. And start planning out that silhouette correctly. Very thick, like tree trunky. Not a lot of like thick to thin. I mean, we can always make sure that we have a bit of thick to thin. We'll add more fur later in the posing, probably. It'll be annoying to add all that hair before posing it. So we'll probably give ourselves, we might even pose it next time, unlike we usually do, so that way we have time to detail within the pose. Because there's going to be a lot of stuff for this guy that's probably just going to be easier to do once he's posed rather than when he's not. In my concept, he seems like a pretty chill mentor. He doesn't seem like a really harsh one, but maybe that's kind of the secret, is he looks really chill until you start training with him, and then he's really intense. Or he just looks really lazy and doesn't seem like he can do much, and then he gets out there and you're like, oh man, he's actually really flexible and really strong and all these other things. Kind of like, I don't know if you guys saw Surf's Up. If you see Big Z, I think it's Big Z, right? Played by Jeff Bridges, I think. I love that movie. But that's a great example of a character who seems really lazy and he's kind of lost his way. That's a great example of actually a student mentor story, right? Of the mentor kind of losing his way and wanting to have fun, and then the student being too driven about, you know, competitions and wanting to win and kind of losing his sight of what actually he enjoys about the sports of surfing and stuff. So I think the mentor-student archetype is always really interesting to play with in stories. Because most of the time it's more interesting when the mentor learns and gets just as much out of teaching the student as the student does, but they learn different things about themselves through each other, which I think is a really nice combination. It happens a lot also with, you could also say that the teacher-mentor thing is a lot of the father-daughter type trope that you see as well, or, you know, father-son stuff is really similar. Last of Us, you could kind of argue that, you know, Joel's kind of a mentor and she's a student, but she also has a lot to teach Joel in that sense, right? It's a very malleable archetype to play with. And Kung Fu Panda does a pretty good job at it, the first one. Oh yeah, Foxpress says Surf's Up has a banger of a soundtrack. I mean, it's got Sugar Ray. Can't argue with that. It's awesome. If we could play just music like that right now, I would love it, but we can't. We have to play non-licensed things. Sad face. But you can all listen to it on your own. I'll listen to it in my head. I talk to you guys. Right, cool. I'm going to, like I always do, split away the face. I don't think I need to split away, even though this is part of his head. I'm not really detailing that part of his head, so I don't think I need to keep that. I can just split hidden. I'll just split that away and start detailing the face a bit more. If you guys are in the chat and you guys want to talk, what's your favorite character from Jungle Book, since we're doing orangutan? And King Louis just happens to come to mind. That's also probably another good example of mentor-mentee is Mowgli, right? And Baloo, along with Bagheera. If you really look for the mentor-student archetype, you'll find it in tons and tons of stuff. Hello, Paz. Really kind of everywhere. Because I think the big takeaway is we're all mentors and we're all students. You know, as an artist, you're constantly a student who's constantly learning and constantly engaging with new ideas and new content and trying to improve and perfect your craft. Even more resolution. More resolution. I need a lot of more resolution because usually the face isn't taken up by so much. There's just so much face. It's not actual face, right? It's all his like skin flaps. There's got to be a technical term for that. I don't know what it is. If you guys want to look it up, you guys could tell me if there's maybe a scientific term for the face skin or face plate, whatever you want to call it. I feel like there would be. All scientists have weird names for things. Alex saying that movie with Clint Eastwood. Wait, which movie? Which one? There's so many. Talking about one where he's like a mentor? I'm trying to think of one where he'd be a mentor. He has pretty sunken in eyes because he's kind of an older fella. Push that back even more. This is where carving out his face is going to be very interesting to try to find where, you know, those bony landmarks are. Oh, Clint Eastwood keeps an orangutan and his partner? What is that? Yeah, I don't remember the name either. Someone's got to look that up. We all have Google. Got to look it up. Maybe that'll be this character's name. It's homage to that orangutan. Zygomaticus. If you're talking about the cheekbone, then yes, that's the zygomatic. It's called the zygomatic arch, right? Which one? Obviously, they have them, but it's very much usually covered with yeet. That's a good way to say yes. But it is usually covered in, at least in our reference, you can see that, you know, they're very sunken in eyes, and there is a bit of where that cheekbone lies, but yeah, most of it's just this big skin face, skin flap. But again, I want to add slight more form, and also if he's older, I want to try to get, you know, kind of gaunt is not quite the right word that I want to go for, but it's close enough to what I'm trying to aim for. Because I don't want him to feel weak, and that's what kind of gaunt is kind of the wrong word for it, but I do want that kind of sunken in, older face to come through for sure. And try to find that balance. Because from the side, we're probably not going to be able to see his actual eye. I think it's going to be pretty sunken in. And then he also has his long, awesome eyebrows that we'll give him as well. All of his big old mustache and stuff. Oh, he found it. It's called Every Which Way But Loose. Oh man, I'm gonna have to look that up. I don't know if I've even seen that. I feel like I've seen screenshots of it because I remember. I mean, it's how often do you see an orangutan in a film most of the time, so it's memorable. I don't know if I've actually seen the film. I wonder if it's any good. Although an orangutan that punches people in the face on command, it's pretty great. I'll probably open up his mouth here in a little bit as well. Because I enjoy the... Because one, he'll have a... We'll probably keep the pipe that he has. Hi, Prashant. Probably keep the pipe that he has, and then I like the expression of being able to move his mouth around in really fun ways, since ape mouths they're so malleable and so animatable. They have so much character. So definitely want to play with that a lot too. And carve this down. Starting to get there. It looks like a pillow cushion with a face. Which I guess isn't that far from what they really look like. But they're so weird. It's awesome. This is a fun one to sculpt just because it's very different from most other faces that you'll try to mimic and stuff, so a good one. That's definitely, I think, what most of my stream is too, is when we're coming up with archetypes. It's about trying to find something that is new or different, or something that's kind of maybe challenging to you, or something that's, again, something you maybe didn't really think about ever trying to be able to sculpt, or whatever it may be. I think it's always good to try to push out of your comfort zone. Not that I would say any sort of animal is usually out of my comfort zone, but this is an animal that I've never sculpted. So because of that, you're kind of automatically within kind of an interesting realm. I'm going to give him a more pouty face, maybe. Trying to make sure that that connection feels good. I don't want it to look like just a weird transition, because there's actually quite a bit of pinching that happens between the mouth, like the muzzle part, and where the skin is. So much so that we might be able to just split this into 2 pieces. Psyducks is talking about some face anatomy, talking about the depressor and the anguli oris. Really neat. Someone with profound one. Oh, a profound Resorius? I'm not sure if I remember what the Resorius is. I know what the other two are. And then working on your master, which is basically your jaw muscle. And we have very weak masters in comparison to most of the animal kingdom. Most of the animal kingdom has giant masters that go through and stick up to their temple. We have a pretty small temporal muscle, which is where the masseter, it's where the jaw muscle goes up underneath the zygomatic arch, which is our cheekbone, and then spreads out. That's why when you chew, you can kind of see the side of someone's head move, if you actually really look very closely at that. That's what that is. That's what's moving. But if you look at your dog, the entire top of their head is basically the same thing as the side of your head. It's just way bigger. So they have way more bite power than we do. And most animals are like that when you look at their skull. They have this huge temporal ridge that goes along their skull, which is where that big muscle attaches to. So they've got a way more impressive bite power than we do. I gave my dogs in the back here, who are now sleeping, I gave them a chew to try to last the stream, and they chewed in like 5 minutes. All right, we're getting there. Traps are big too, attached to the back of the occipital bone. Yeah, the occipital is the back of your skull, where your vertebra also sits, and your traps actually attach all the way up to the top of that and go all the way down, and they'll attach to the tops of your scapula, along with some of your collarbone, and then some of your shoulder and deltoid area as well. Traps attach a really big... The whole shoulder girdle is a really complicated piece of anatomy because there's just so much movement that happens there. I'm going to open up his mouth. The more you know about human anatomy or animal anatomy, it'll help in either aspect because we have comparative anatomy that we're able to look and say, this is where this sits on me, this is where this sits on this animal, and be able to make those comparisons and learn from those comparisons. Bacon Bolt, hello. Saito is also saying that we have more movement and articulation than most animals. That is true because we're bipedal, whereas most animals are going to be quadruped, right? So their momentum in their shoulders is all about forward momentum. It's not about reaching and elongating, and they have a different purpose than we do when it comes to range of motion. We can't run as fast as a cheetah, right? So I guess cheetah wins in some ways and we win in some ways. It can be pretty cool to be able to run 60 miles an hour, but it's probably just not in the cards. I'm gonna split the jaw off so I can make sure that there's good overlap back here. I really like making sure that there's good overlap on the very edge of the mouth, because it just adds a lot more realism to the sculpt as we're sculpting it. Again, it's all these little details for me that will make up the proper shapes, and not just polishing something haphazardly. Oops, auto save. Get out of here. There we go. But it's like little forms like this that indicate a lot of expression or character for me as I go through the sculpting process. It helps a lot. And then we can add some teeth later. We'll go ahead and mask section. Oops. Oh, Side is saying how the pecs tuck under. Yeah, there's a lot of complicated stuff there where the deltoid goes over, the pec goes over that, and then the bicep goes underneath that, right? And yeah, sculpting the statue of David sounds super hard. One, mainly because it's out of marble. I don't know how they do that. It's pretty incredible. It's an art form that's slowly being lost today, unfortunately. I hope more people can maintain that, because it really is a pretty amazing medium. Pull these out. Oops. Sometimes I extract and think that it's good. I always have to. I always forget that I have to accept most of the time. Oh, you have a Thinking Man piece. That's a good one. There's a lot of replicas of Thinking Man. There's one here in Pasadena at the oh gosh, what's that museum called? Pasadena of Modern Arts, maybe? No, it's not. What is it called? It's not called that. I can't remember what it's called. If you're in, it starts with an N. I think. I'm in Long Beach, but it's close enough to Pasadena. I used to go to Pasadena all the time. There's really cool Gallery Nucleus there. That's awesome. It has a lot of current entertainment, kind of like industry artists that do a lot of stuff there. Really fun to go and check out their work, and you'll find a lot of cool art books. Yeah, Nicholas Namiri, I think, just had a show there, which was pretty cool. I think he flew all the way out from like Japan or Korea or something. He flew quite a ways to come out here for that show, which was cool. That beard adds a lot of things, doesn't it? It's cool. Good old beards. Now he feels like an old man. Oh, he had his show canceled? I didn't know that. Nicholas Namiri? I thought it was there. I wanted to go check it out. Doc Hooper has a show there pretty often as well. Donating to that would be very cool. I don't know what that is in particular, what comics they did, but fortunately I'm more of a manga reader than I am a comic book reader. I'm trying to be a better book reader just in general, but why read when you can art? Just kidding, you should also read. I just finished a Stephen King book, actually, not that long ago. It's very good. I'll be looking for my next book soon. Not sure what I want to do. I'm always a fan of fantasy, but it's hard finding good fantasy books. Name of the Wind is probably one of my favorite fantasy novels. What kind of manga do I like? Ooh, well, if you can see my bookshelf, I have a lot of Dragon Ball on my shelf. But currently, I've been watching and catching up with One Piece. I love Heart of the Stranger, or Sword of the Stranger. I need to watch Edge Runners. Berserk is great. One of my favorites is Blade of the Immortal, which I have some of the books for. Blade of the Immortal is amazing. Probably one of my favorites. Heavily inspired by that character, for sure. Especially in my own personal works and stuff. Trying to read. What else was I trying to read? Oh, I mean, I'm not caught up, but I've been trying to read My Hero. I want to read Spy Family, Chainsaw Man, Evangelion. I have some Evangelion stuff. I have Junji Ito. I love Junji Ito. He's great. Nicest person and the scariest mind. There's also these really I wouldn't call it I mean, it is a manga, but Shigeru Miyazuki, I have his books, and they're called Showa. And it's basically it's kind of like a biography of him as a kid and going through the wars in Japan, all the way from like the 1920s into the 70s. And they're really fascinating. They're really good books. They're kind of like an autobiography, sort of, about all the turmoil of the Showa era within Japan. It's really good. I like the first 150 Pokemon. Witch's Hat? Okay. It's a good fantasy novel. Edge Runners. All right. Name of the Wind is one of my favorites as far as a fantasy novel goes. There's also one called Chronicles of Amber. That's a fantasy novel. That's also a favorite of mine. Super, super good. That guy's an amazing writer. I forget the author's name of that right at the moment, but he's really good. Super Crooks. Chainsaw Man is a terrible read. I've heard back and forth things about reading it. I do want to watch. I think I want to watch it though. That's always a tough one for me. Is I like reading manga, but I also love watching it too. So it's hard to see which one. Depends on the show whether I'll try to read it or watch it. My Hero I just started reading. Same thing with Attack on Titan. Oh, that one's a hard one to read too, because I'm not the biggest fan of the art. And the English translation is kind of hard to follow. But I finished it and I never actually watched the rest of it, you know? So it depends. Trying to start sculpting in some more anatomy here. I always do this thing in the first block out where I spend a very long time on the face and I don't do anything else. And then the time goes up and I'm like, well, I guess I'll have to do some stuff outside. I feel like I always have to make up so much outside of the stream. I'm gonna try not to do that though. I mean, the silhouette, because of the arms, he looks like he has like a really weird, funky booty. It makes me laugh. Pokemon's been going on for a long time, and I only watched the first. I like Johto League. Like that was where I stopped. Like I stopped watching that a long time ago. Also, the latest Pokemon, they're like, it has wheels. I'm not about that life. I don't want a Pokemon with wheels. Just make a motorcycle. It doesn't have to be a Pokemon. Like, just go ride a Ponyta or something. You know, like you don't need to make it a motorcycle. They're like becoming Transformers or like Beast Wars. It's super weird to me, but oh well. Each their own. Whoever, if you like it, you like it. It's cool. I can't complain. I say I like Dragon Ball, and Dragon Ball is horrible most of the time. It's such a frustrating manga to read. Super's not great. The last good saga was Frieza, but I still love it. Because it has moments. It has moments that are awesome. I'll continue to read it. But One Piece is definitely my favorite. I'm working my way through it, so I'm not done yet, but man, Oda is one heck of a storyteller. I don't know how he does it. I think we all could aspire one day to build worlds like that guy. Maybe if I keep Archetype up long enough, we could all world build something like that together. That could be fun. Which, by the way, if that's something you guys would want to see, I mean, I try to create variety, but you know, I have my own personal projects that I like to work on that, you know, I could stream and we could do something different in that realm as well. Kind of depends on what everybody feels like they enjoy seeing. Because I know this process for just sculpting a lot of stuff could maybe get repetitive. I don't really know for you guys, but you know, if you want to see, maybe we can turn it into a game asset, or I could show, you know, I'm working on a game right now on my free time, and maybe that's something that I could eventually share with y'all. But we'll see. We'll see where the stream goes. If I do it long enough, we'll definitely be changing up what we'll be doing, you know. Try to keep it fresh and keep it fun. There's so many people talking. Akira Toriyama is the best as far. I love his artwork. His body reminds you of the monsters in Berserk. Nice. Divine Nandy's asking if I have any tutorials or point to a particular stream that you would call a tutorial. There's tons of stuff on YouTube. If you're trying to learn ZBrush, Michael Pavlovich has so many on YouTube that is about learning ZBrush, and he'll run through everything. I teach at Gnomon, so if you're in LA, I teach the Intro to ZBrush course at Gnomon, so you can come take the class if you're a local. But other than that, no, I don't have any tutorials. You can always ask me questions technically on here. If you see me do something and you're like, hey, what was that? I am happy to answer anything that you guys try to throw at me, as long as I can keep up. But yeah, I don't personally have any tutorials, but there's so many on YouTube alone that you can find some pretty good ones. I've been learning how to animate in Blender from YouTube. There's a guy named Pierre Cult or something like that. I can't remember exactly. He's a really good animator, and he breaks down animating in Blender really, really well, and it was super, super helpful. So yeah, just I would say keep searching on the internet. You'll find tons of stuff. And then also classes are usually really helpful too. Depends on how you learn. You know, some people can't just Google tutorials and watch tutorials. They find it really boring, or they'll fall asleep, or whatever it may be. And that's totally fine. If you work better in a classroom, you know, with other people, then that works too. Throwing in some fingers. I'll definitely have to try to make that palm probably a little longer. For add-ons for ZBrush or for Blender, Andy? I'm assuming you're asking for Blender. For animation, the only add-on that I had on for animation was a rig. You know, I have the Auto Rigger Pro, I think, which I think also works in Maya. But yeah, I have an Auto Rigger. Then for like modeling and stuff, I have Hard Ops. But most of my modeling I do in ZBrush, so I have it. I just don't use it that often. And then for texturing and stuff, I use Substance Painter. So there's a lot of other programs that I use in my pipeline that are not Blender related, but for animating and for rendering and stuff, I use Blender. I won't pay for Maya. I can't afford Maya. Not on a personal license. I use it for work, but not for anything else. Blender's free and awesome. So, add-ons for ZBrush. There's not really add-ons for ZBrush. They have this thing called Z Plugin, which has a bunch of their things that they've added on to ZBrush, but it comes pretty standard. There's one add-on for ZBrush that's like a naming convention type thing, where it's more like an outliner, so you can select things easier than just like the subtool, rename things at the same time, or you can select multiple objects easier and stuff like that. I forget what that one's called. I haven't used it in years because I haven't needed it. It used to be useful when I was working in 3D printing, but I'm working in games now and it's not as relevant anymore. Oh, my Dynamesh is off. Anyway, what happened? So, yeah, other than that, I don't use anything. I have a Blender to ZBrush bridge, so I can, you know, export these out and put them into Blender really quickly. I have something like that, but other than that, there's really not a lot of plugins for Blender, or not Blender, ZBrush. Blender's just kind of good old fat. What are you doing? Why? That's weird. My local symmetry all of a sudden became very, very local symmetry, which I don't want. one of the reasons I won't update to 2023, because they changed the way local symmetry works, and it makes me really sad. Because it's super useful, and I don't know why they changed it. Because now I can't do the things that I usually do with it. I'm at a loss. Get some hands in there. Try to block in some basic form so I can just see lengthwise if that works. The back of the hand feels long, but the palm kind of doesn't, so I can bring up. And the hand might be too big. The hand's pretty big. They're ginormous. Look how big they got. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I don't know. We could keep it, guys. They're too big. I'm just kidding. We're not keeping that. They're huge. That's funny though. See what happens when you zoom in on one section and you just kind of work on it. You're ignoring the rest. You get giant hands. Fantastic. We're gonna make these a lot smaller. Hi, Kevin. Thank you, Natty, for the compliment. Silex asking. Oh wait, no, it was Bacon that's asking how they changed local symmetry. So they changed. So right now, as you can see, I can scale the hands based on the local symmetry of this. You can't do that, and maybe someone knows the answer or like how to change it in the new one, but I don't. Because you can't change it like that anymore. So it always acts and functions like this. And so local symmetry works more for like if you have like a patch on the side of the shoulder or something and you want to sculpt it in symmetry, but it's not in world symmetry. Apparently it works better for that type of stuff now, but it doesn't work for this type of local symmetry anymore. And it's very frustrating because this is what I mainly use local symmetry for, is for like changing the scale of things that are on one side that I want to keep on that side. So yeah, I don't know the answer. I don't know why it's changed. It's something that I have to talk to my students about and fight it all the time because we use 2023 at school. So yeah, it's just one of those weird things. I think they try to make an improvement to sculpt when you actually have something off-world origin, but it kind of ruined my workflow for this type of local symmetry. So I don't know. I'm sure Michael Pavlovich has an answer. I just haven't been able to find it yet. I'm trying to just add a little example of like a tuft of hair that would be hair. And then I think I've done this trick before with you guys to just block in hair. I like to use the snake hook brush. There it is. And then I'll change the alpha on it. In this case, I think I could just keep it kind of square, or maybe I could try something like that and see what I get. And then you can pull it. And you'll get hair. It's just an easy way to, whoops, block in something. More of just a visual thing than it is. I don't think that alpha is working. I'm just going to use the one I usually use. It's more of just a visual thing, just to see how shapes are feeling more than anything else. Mentors looking wise. Any thoughts on marmoset texturing for characters? Is it good? Question from Rono on YouTube. I actually haven't really tried much of marmoset's texturing. I've done a little bit and it seems pretty good. I think my biggest thing is I'm just used to the programs that I'm used to, meaning I texture in Substance. But I will say, I think if you're going to texture marmoset, I kind of want to more now. We just don't have it as at work as a license, so I can't use it for work stuff. I'll have to do some personal projects and play with it more, because the last character that I did a post where it was all nicely lit and stuff, and that was rendered in marmoset, and it looks great. So to texture and then to test, lighting setups, I think looks way better in marmoset than what Substance has. But for my work, we use Unreal Engine, so most of the time when it comes to look deving, I don't bother going into any other program except for Unreal Engine, because there's just no point. If it doesn't look good in Engine, it doesn't matter if it looks good anywhere else, because that's where it's going to be, right? But for personal projects, if you're just rendering stuff out or you're just texturing and you just want to see what it'll look like once you render it in Blender or something, I think that workflow works pretty well. It's just more difficult when it comes to like game engines, because materials are just so different. And that's usually pretty true just from program to program in general. But yeah, its texturing looks pretty strong. 3D Coat is also a pretty good one. Their stuff has gotten better and better over the years. I used to use them just for like UVing, because their UV setup was really good. But I just went back to Maya and it's fine. At the end of the day, it kind of becomes a pick your poison more than what is actually better, because you'll find that all programs have a weakness, all programs have strengths, and it's really just a matter of what you're comfortable with. There are better hard surface modelers out there than ZBrush, but I like ZBrush, so that's where I work, right? And that really just comes down to, that's my speed and preference, and that's where I feel most comfortable when it comes to getting my work done. So that's where, all that stuff comes into play. But, whether you're going with marmoset or Substance, it's really just going to be a matter of figuring out what button is where, and then, just going with what makes sense to you and what feels the most comfortable for your workflow. That's really, at the end of the day, what it's about. Well, I'm going to block out some clothes here. He's got asymmetrical hood thing, so I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this guy. And we'll use this as a base to create some clothes, in which case we don't need any of the polygroups, and then we also probably just don't need this piece either. So I'm just going to delete it, group it, turn off groups. I can merge all this stuff down. You can even make it lower resolution. That's something a little bit easier to work with. And then I'll start by making pants first. So I'm going to duplicate. Actually, I lied. I don't need to duplicate it. I can just mask this to here. Sorry, let me check my phone. I got a notification. I want to make sure it's no emergency. Cool. I am by myself today, hanging out, so I just wanted to make sure there was nothing needed. Yeah, Marmoset's rendering is really good. I really enjoy rendering in Marmoset. It also handles polygons way better than like Substance and stuff like that, I find, for its rendering. I get way less crashes in Marmoset than I do in trying to do stuff like oh yeah, look at those pants. And stuff like in Marmoset or whatnot. Substance Painter always, at least on my machine, always feels very, very laggy. Oh, Casey said Keyshot's great too. Yeah, I like Keyshot. The only thing I don't like about Keyshot is it's a little slower with its ray tracing. I'm sure it's better now, but for me, when I was using it before, it was a little slow on its ray tracing. And its material setups, though, are really good. And I know plenty of concept artists that use it like crazy. I liked Marmoset because I never really needed that kind of ray tracing. I just kind of liked the in-game, little higher quality in-game asset making. Because I always try to just make game assets for the most part. So for me, it was one of those things I just didn't need. I don't need that much crazy ray tracing capabilities. Okay. Groups. Z-remesh that. Cool. I think just him in like pants, he just looks like a really old grandpa now. He doesn't look very cool yet. He just kind of looks like someone's old grandpa. I feel like I just need to give him suspenders and just call it a day, and yeah, we're good. Just be funny. Old orangutan grandpa. I'm gonna turn off symmetry here, and this shawl is going to be very interesting to make. This is something that I would prefer to probably make in something like Substance, or not Substance, programs, Marvelous. I'd probably prefer to make something like this in Marvelous just because there's a lot of layers to it. But okay, we'll just sculpt it. I'm also just wondering, because in reality, there's no sleeve, or is there a sleeve? I'm trying to just look at my reference to see which one would be the best to do. This one has a sleeve and then goes half, and then like, we'll just do that type of one. I think that'll be the easiest one to kind of go with. So the one I'm looking at is this one right here. You can see that it has a sleeve and there'll be like stitching. And we could even, well, I mean, I want to keep the fur, so we probably won't do this part here, but this whole thing that turns into then a stitched one. You're looking at other stuff like, I don't even think I have a reference of anything else, so I guess we'll just use that. But there's some way more complicated ones than that I think we're just going to avoid for now. So we'll just create something like that. Extract it. Say K. Grab this guy. I'm going to make sure I can grab. So I'm trying to just add a stitch line where it makes sense. Better. Cut that. And then I can also turn on double, and I can try to make sure that I want a loop that goes around here, and a loop that goes around here. Like that. It's just a way to get, I could even do that as well. The more help you give to ZRemesher, the more friendly the mesh usually will be. So we'll see. Keep groups. It's pretty good. Let's move some of this out. And then I would just have it, ZRemesh it, do it again. That's problematic. There's a retry that I don't have in my... Oh no, that's in the new one. I lied. It's not terrible. I don't like this little nasty thing that's happening here, but we can just split it. And then I'll stitch it. And then we can delete that edge. That's a little better. I still don't like the 5-pointed star being there, but for this, it'll be fine. Okay. Casey's asking, what is my retop program of choice? I'm crazy and I use ZBrush. So don't listen to me. I'm the psycho that uses ZBrush, and no one really should, but I don't like moving programs. I don't like the export low, import high, decimate, blah. I would just rather do it all in one file. Because it's the same thing with a lot of stuff, like, you know, I was saying pick your poison, but at least texturing in any program is fun. Retop's not fun in any program you choose. So for me, I'm just like, I'm just gonna keep torturing myself in ZBrush. But actually, the reason why I use ZBrush though is I feel like it's actually because it's more, I wouldn't say more difficult, because no matter what program you use, retop's always going to be more time consuming. It's the worst part of the job. No matter what you use, it's always going to be time consuming. And then, but for ZBrush, I feel like I have to draw really big quads. Like I force myself to be as simple as possible when I'm retopping in ZBrush. So I actually feel like I finish it faster because there's no, you know, quad draw loop techniques or do anything. It's just place inverts, which is super tedious, but I feel like I get a lot out of it. Because I'm forced to kind of like draw bigger. But yeah, that's just my own weirdness. Gonna extrude. Later, I'll probably just bunch this up. Or maybe I gotta look up. Yeah, you just have to make the Z-sphere in the middle of it. I mean, it doesn't have to be in the middle. It can just be anywhere in your scene. You just do it. I mean, I can do it at some point on this stream if you want to see it, but you're really gonna make me retop for streaming? How dare you? This is supposed to be my fun time, man. I gotta look up what the actual pattern of these cloaks are, because this doesn't feel right. I feel like gotta go for a Google search. Here we go. Gotta look up like sort of Shaolin monk pattern or something. Cloth pattern? I just want to know what it looks like flat. Because I'm assuming it's not just a normal one, but is their arm just taken out of it? I actually have no idea if they just take their arm out of one that already has 2 sleeves. And then the sleeves just like hanging out. That would be interesting. That's cool. Good old reference. I'm only finding 2-sleeved ones. So I'll have to see. I mean, it looks like a big just draped cloak, so. One thing that's bothering me is it looks just like a dress. So I might split. I might split this in half and then put some stitching there so there's some like overlap. So basically I would, when I say split, it's not really splitting, it's just grabbing this and deleting it. But now I can create a sense of overlap there. So I can select this area. I can move this over it. We'll probably have to drape more. I think the biggest thing too is it's gonna look weird because he's just standing. Like the moment he like lifts an arm or lifts a leg and we can start sculpting all the drapery and stuff, that'll also make a really, really big difference. I have to do some more research before I finalize this to make sure that I'm kind of doing it correctly. Because I don't want it to be inaccurate to where it's going to give me problems to pose it later. This also might be something that I might just resculpt entirely once it's posed, you know? So there's also that. This character, because again, we're not doing like rigging and doing a low res and high res and stuff and, you know, cloth dynamics and things. We just gotta kind of, you gotta sculpt things in a boring pose first and then. These are pretty long. I think someone said it may need to drape more. Yeah, I don't think you're wrong in that. I think this also might need to come down more. Possibly. Smooth all that out now. I did some funky things. Why did I do that? That's weird. I wonder why it's closing that edge. Funky. I might be thinking that I want it to because of these. Oh, so annoying. What happens if I just delete it? It's like, yeah, that's cool. It's so weird. Oh, is it smoothing it? That might be why. Don't smooth. That's why. I don't know why, but sometimes smooth groups actually gets turned to 1 and then it breaks everything. The biggest thing with this too will be adding thickness and sculpting all that cloth and folds and stuff, and then we'll add some, you know, little ties and things right here, and then this will get all bunched up. So, you know, and we can do that in the dynamics. We could, because right now, you know, it just like looks like a nightgown. We're gonna this firmness, do cloth nudge. We can like nudge all this stuff up. Well, I think I have to recalculate the volume before I do that. I don't think there's any volume that it's trying to adhere to. So, where is it? Collision volume. There we go. But yeah, we could start pulling that down. I actually feel like it's getting pulled and draped rather than... But again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because it changes entirely with the pose that you would go for. Where'd my reference go? There it is. Found it. We've got... I'll have to add the sash thing later. I can turn off this collision volume now. And I can move this... Oops. Down. And again, the dynamics is just a starting point to get ideas. It's never your fully final finished thing. But you're going to be able to art direct these cloths and folds better than, you know, simulation will do. But when it comes to stylized stuff, at least. I think there is usually like a little slit on the side so they can stretch easier and stuff like that. So we might be able to play with that too. We could easily... you can save... Well, we'll see if it works. First I'm going to save, just in case. Where's my stuff? Here it comes. Mentor. Save it. And then Rono says sash will make it look less like a dress. And yes, once we add the little sash, and also being able to see the pants more again, it's all that bunching and stuff that we can get. once he's probably sit, I think I'll just do the pose that I did for him. I like kind of this cool sitting pose. And again, I think next week we'll probably go straight into posing him. So that way we can kind of like finalize all these details in pose. It's just going to be too hard to do all this because you just have to do so much rework because we're just kind of treating this like a maquette. So let's see if this works. And it didn't. That's okay. I was trying to delete that mesh without reconstructing subdivisions, but I can just get rid of it later. And then, yeah, there is going to be a little sash. So, I mean, I think the easiest way to do something like that would just be to grab a cube. Oops, wrong button. So I usually will grab a cube and then I'll make it really low res. And then you can just fit it. Oops. Yep. Something like that. I know it looks weird, but then all you have to do is just delete these. And then you can just insert edge loops. And if you want to be more accurate, you can, you know, select, move these around. Another really easy way to start getting subdivisions to this is just beveling. So you can just bevel this to get an average. If it likes me. There we go. Very colorful when you do that. Maybe his sash will be a little stiffer because I kind of like this little like hard-edged shoulder piece that you get out of it. We'll have to figure out how it attaches. Maybe it just straps in, or maybe it's maybe there'll be like a little belt thing that he can wear that kind of it tucks under, you know, and then it will kind of drape from there. And try doing something like that. And maybe the stripe's a lot longer. So pulling this down and finding where that belt would probably be, and then draping it. I like working really low res with stuff like this because you just get the most accurate shape that you're trying to go for first before adding any detail. And then I'll insert one more edge loop. Maybe this would not double. And again, we could have this like hang down more, you know? Double. Selling clothing is really all about, again, where there is tension and then where there is draping, and then where it's hanging versus where it's going to get pulled or held onto and things like that. So do something like that, and then again I'll insert and my shoulder today. Oh, it's having fun. Grab a cylinder. Little belt sash type thing. And this could later, maybe it's just like a rope or something. But we're going to try to fit that to his body, and then all the clothing is going to work around that because that's going to be a point of tension. Right, so even we can even bring this in more, and then can grab this guy and carve that in. And that's going to sell that it's actually, you know, holding on to this stuff. And then we can grab this dude, and I can crease this so that it doesn't lose all of its rigidity. And I'll move that inward. I might not have enough topology quite yet to sell this or not, but I think it's just the idea of getting it in there, right? Where it feels like it's going to be pinching in there. And I'll need because of the curvature, I'll probably just need another loop here. I can make sure that I can pull that in, pull that in, have that stick out more. I want it to be fairly, I want it to feel fairly stiff. Like I want it to be pretty stiff feeling. So again, we'll pull that in here. And then grab this cloth. I think someone was like, oh, once you add the sash, it'll look a little better. And I don't think they were wrong. I think it looks better with that. Trying to select the thing and I can't. There we go. And then I had like this cool little rope thing that's on his, in the concept it's on kind of like it's like a separate little belt thing. So maybe I'll keep that. I'm wondering if it should just be part of the sash. My shoulders, just because I'm still getting used to my screen. So that's why. Oh, Sidex is asking if I'm a professional contact is on the Gnomon site. I'm a teacher at Gnomon, so I am the professional contact at Gnomon. But yes, there's all my good pals and people that help me stream for you guys, along with teaching and doing all that stuff. But yeah, I teach on site at Gnomon, if that's what you're asking. Oh, that Kenisolik? Sorry, I'm terrible at pronouncing things. Tape. I know what you're talking about. Jared Kruszewski, who does the Creature Corner thing, I think later tonight. He uses that and he swears by it. It helps him a lot for sculpting and stuff. And I'll have to try it one of these days. I always meant to, and then I was bad and didn't, so. Oh, the pants are sticking out. That's what that is. But yeah, I'll have to try that one of these days. Select, well, let me duplicate. Gonna make another cylinder. And do the same thing. Again, my concept I have is kind of this like other sash thing. It has like this cool little rope detail on it, so I think I'm gonna keep that as like a separate. Rotate this so that way it feels like it's resting up against something. I'm just masking this area and then I soften it once. And that allows me to do kind of like a smoother rotation of it, so it feels like it's kind of resting more properly. Maybe the rope thing attaches to the sash, so it's like just like this extra little added detail. Or for like fancy decoration more than anything else, I guess. I can crease that so that when I smooth it, I can see the pinching that it's getting. There's always going to be some rounding out and stuff until you add thickness and increase it that way. So that'll always. Always be a little bit of a thing just until you add thickness. So it's just something to keep in mind. right, I'm gonna throw in some eyeballs. Because clothing-wise, he actually doesn't have anything too complicated. We're gonna pose him probably next week so we can sculpt all that stuff and play with it. And then I want to add and create some like textures, because a lot of the concept I think will come out when I add some cool texture detail and stuff to his clothing, and then add the stitching and do all that kind of stuff. So we'll play with that. Next time. I'm not leaving yet, just keeping you guys posted. And then we'll add some teeth as well. Hello, Flat Ron. Hi. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Having a good time sculpting some stuff. So now I can select this one. I'll do the pen. Get some T-fums. Because it gives you a pretty good outline, you could probably just keep those groups and then do a Z-remesh. And then just keep having it. And then you can run a polish by features. Get some teeth. Or these could also be the gums first, and then we could extrude. Probably do that. Duplicate it, and then take this guy, turn on double, and we're only going to take the front half of this. And this can go away. Really hidden. We can do some clever-ish things. We could actually extrude, probably group all, and then we'll do it again. That'll create individual teeth. And then we can move these around individually. You can have them stick out a bit more. Add some asymmetry in there. There we go. I'm going to duplicate that. So I'll duplicate the gums. I could probably just not even flip it and bring it up to the top. And then I can grab the teeth. I'll duplicate those. And those I will flip 180, and then I'll also flip them this way. I can put those up there. And if I wanted to give them one of the canines, right? And then same thing maybe here. Make sure that you can see the gums, and then basically when he lifts his, mouth and moves, you want to be able to see those gums and stuff in there. So if he can, when he like drops his lip down, oh, it's masked, that's why. When he drops his lip down, you're going to be able to see the gums, or when he pushes his lips up and makes like a funny face, right? Or when he's like holding the cigar or the pipe, you want to be able to do something like that. So. And while I'm at it, one thing I could do now as well is just do a quick Z-remesh on this. So I'll keep the jaw just probably separate for the last like 5 minutes here. So do that. Grab this big faceplate. And probably grab that in there. I think I might get a better result if I actually probably cut this. That, and then do a mirror weld. Yeah, the way of making teeth is fun. It's nothing too crazy. Oops. You can see that better. There we go. I am going to take this and split that. That should be fine. Groups. See what it does. It's pretty good. Happy. And then we'll unsolo it, or it hasn't been soloed at all. Divide it, and then project. Oh no. ZBrush, what'd you do? Dude, did ZBrush just die for no reason? Where'd it go? Whoa, that was weird. And ZBrush crashed on me for no reason. Thank you, ZBrush. Oh, so obnoxious. Well, that did a great time. Great time, ZBrush, to do that. That was lovely. Right at the end. I was just finishing things. ZBrush loves me. Yay. Okay. Well, you guys saw where we got to. Now I have to do all that work again. Isn't that gonna be fun, guys? Yep. Rip. F in the chat. So sad. It'll be okay. I'll survive. I'll just have to do it again. Well, anyway, we're gonna cut that short now. Man, that was weird. I just hit project and it just died on me. I've never had it do that before. That was super weird. But, you know, ZBrush is going to do what ZBrush is going to do. Just save your work more often. But anyway, I'll bring it back up to where we were, probably a little farther next week, because like I said, I want to get everything in place to then pose it, and then we can like have fun doing some like texturing and more detail work and whatnot. And then we'll go from there. But yeah, so you saw where it was and now where it is, and we'll just have to fix it and do all that fun stuff. But yeah, join me next week when ZBrush doesn't crash, and we'll keep working on our lovely character here. I'm excited to keep going, and I'm really excited to get to it posed, because then next week we could also get into sculpting the fur and all that stuff, which is going to bring this character much more into life, you know, getting the beard all worked out and getting his arms and everything. And yeah, we'll just keep working from there, and then, you know, we'll put in his weapon and do all that stuff, and we'll have fun with all that stuff. So again, thanks for joining me. This was fun until it crashed, like always. You guys gotta remind me in the chats to save. I'm always gonna forget as I'm like sitting here talking. I'm gonna hold you guys accountable. Tell me to save, and then we'll be good. But thank you again, you guys, for joining. Fun as always. I enjoyed everybody asking questions. This was Archetype, sponsored by Lenovo and AMD. I am your host, Ashley. Enjoying this, even if it crashes or if it doesn't. It's all well and good and all part of the process. So I will catch you guys next time. Have a wonderful Tuesday. Bye.